that again. All right, good. The recording button's on. All right, so listen, we're going to have a little bit of a different workshop today compared to a lot of the other workshops that we had before. What we're going to be talking about is this. We're going to talk about goal setting and why you need to set challenging sales goals. We're going to discuss how to stay motivated, especially when things aren't going your way, and then a step-by-step process for achieving your goal. So my first question to you is this, and there's no right or wrong answer here. I want to get your thoughts, your opinions on this. Your viewpoint is really what I'm after. Why should we set goals? Why should we set goals? Yeah, use your chat box. Why should we set goals? All right, stay motivated, something to chase, motivates ourselves, something to go after, for direction. Again, something that keeps us motivated, so we don't do things willy-nilly. I like that one. Have something to stay focused on, accountability. That's excellent. All right, so there's a lot of us, measurement for yourself. Okay, so there's a lot of us that are sounding like, hey, goal setting is a pretty good thing, right? Okay, so here's the thing. My answer is, why should we set goals? And it's in step with what a lot of you said. I think goal setting is very important because it's going to motivate us. So I'm a big believer in that we can be better today than what we were yesterday. We can be better tomorrow than we are today. And when we have certain goal settings, that there's certain things that we're really passionate about that we want to do, it really motivates us to get up and hit the ground running and work towards something that we want. It also helps us achieve greater success, right? There's no, one of the things I love about sales is there's no glass ceiling, right? I mean, the better you are at your sales skills and your production and your lead generation, all this stuff, the better you are at, the more cash you can make, right? And I don't know about you, but one of the reasons why I got into sales, let me hit the pause button. When I've asked that question before, like, hey, why did you guys get into sales, or what made you decide to get into sales? I'm always flabbergasted when people say, well, they got into sales because they're a people person. And I just thought, man, I don't know. I don't know if I was a people person, I don't know if going into sales with the high rejection rate, if that would have been my first choice. I was like, there's nothing wrong with saying you went into sales because you wanted to make a lot of money. Now, you will only make a lot of money and sleep well at night in sales when you realize and you come to the conclusion that the more people you help get what they need or want, the more money you'll earn, right? So I'm always focused on helping. There was a time in my sales career where I was just focused on myself, right? I just had bills to pay. And I was just trying to close anything that that came within in my vicinity. And I quickly learned, that's not sustainable, and not only will I not be able to reach the high level of success I wanted, but I wasn't going to reach it as an individual either, right? So when I learned that, selling is really about helping other people get something that they need or want, and when you focus on that, the more people you help, the more money you're going to make. The good news is this too, is it takes the pressure off yourself of the rejection, because if you're trying to help somebody and they don't want the help, that's okay. I don't have to take it personally. So the real reason why I got into sales is because I had a certain vision and lifestyle that I wanted to live. And being in sales, the better I was at, the more I earned, it afforded me that opportunity to live that way. So everybody can have their own reason, and that's fine, but that's where the goal setting, that's where my drive, my passion came from. I mean, you got to understand something. I mean, I grew up on food stamps. When I was growing up, there was, especially with us, a broken family and things of that nature, there was really, the haves and the have-nots. Right now, there seems to be like many different levels, right? But back in my day, it was either you were rich, you were poor. Man, we were on the poor side. And so growing up, I didn't like, one, how embarrassing it was back in the day remember when the generic foods came out, the black and white boxes? I remember like it was yesterday being in the grocery store with my mom and shopping, and, got this whole grocery bag full, or this whole grocery cart full of generic cereal, and one of my friends came walking around. I mean, listen, everybody's got a sad story and whatnot, and there's plenty of worse stories that are out there. At least I had food, right? But I'm just trying to make the point of, that's where I was coming from, is like, I want something better, right? And just something as simple as getting up in the morning and getting ready to go to school and not knowing if the car is going to start. That's kind of like the childhood, right? And so getting older, and when I was out on my own, sales was, I realized that the more I studied, the more I learned, the more I researched, the better I became, the more I tried stuff, and when I got rid of making any excuses of why something wasn't working, and instead of saying, well, the leads are bad or the economy's down or whatever, I would go, I always had this in my head. There's somebody somewhere that is doing something similar to what I'm in, and they're being wildly successful at it. So I just need to learn what is it that I need to do better. And so when you have that kind of drive and that thought process and that mentality, you can really go ahead and start to achieve a lot of the goals that you want to get after. But having a goal is the first thing, and I wanted to be better. I was listening to Tony Robbins earlier today on my way back from the gym, just listening to some audio tapes, and on my iPhone. I always say audio tapes. It's just I was just downloaded. It was an app that he has, and he was talking about all decisions are born either out of you're inspired or you're afraid. You're inspired to take action, or you're afraid of something to happen, so you take action to avoid it. And a lot of times I took a lot of action early on because I was inspired to do better, but I was afraid to fail. Meaning, and when I say I was afraid to fail, it wasn't like I let it paralyze me. It was like I don't want to taste failure, so I'm going to outwork it to make sure I can do everything I can to not fail. And when I did fail, I would just learn from it and move on, pick up and go on, right? All right, so with that being said, this is all tied to, I told you guys it's going to be a little bit of a different workshop today, right? So, but this is all tied to goals, and it's not just sales goals and your monthly quotas and things of that nature. I mean, that's important, but there's also, I mean, I read a great book early on called from Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talked about having, goals, and not just in work, but in relationships and with your relationship with God, and all the way down the line. And you can be a little bit better in each one of those areas, right? So with that being said, let's do this. It sounds like we're all in agreement that goal setting is important, but why do we often fail at achieving them? Why do we fail at achieving our goals sometimes? Okay, laziness, sure, absolutely, that's one. What else? Somebody says set too high. You're discouraged. Somebody else again setting. A couple of you saying they set the goals too high. Not focused enough. No discipline. Setting the wrong goals. Mental blocks. No plan. All right, there's a lot of good stuff. You're not writing them down. There's a fear of failing. You don't stay committed. I'm just reading as they come on in. I think there's some gold nuggets in here that we have to look at. So let's do this. Some of you said set the wrong goal. I got to tell you, I just mentioned that book, Stephen Covey, right? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is one of the top 3 books that changed my life, okay? And I'm going to tell you a story about this right now. So when I was I have to have been, 21, 22, I decided to come to Florida. And oh man, how do I want to say this? I never knew my biological father, right? And then so he reached out to me when I was like 21, so he wanted me to come down to Florida to meet him, and I was like, fine. I mean, my band, I had a rock band up in Ohio. The band broke up. The girlfriend thing ain't working out. I was in a major car accident, and so I lost my job because I couldn't work. I mean, things were just going, way south. And all of a sudden I get this phone call from somebody I never met, or maybe I met when I was 3 or 4 or 5, I don't even remember. And, he invited me to come on down to Florida, and so great. I got nothing else going on, so I went to go meet him. And it was great, but it didn't work out, which was sad. But with that being said, I'm down here in Florida. I was basically homeless, didn't have a car, didn't have a job, didn't have cash, didn't have a place to stay. So anyway, I picked myself up. I got this yellow sheet of paper, this pad out. It's just similar to the one if you had the video on, I'd show you, legal pad. And I wrote down my list of goals. I mean, I really hit rock bottom. Now I found somebody to take me in, and that was fine. But I was like, man, it doesn't get any lower than this. And so I had that yellow piece of paper and that legal pad, and I wrote down all the goals I wanted to do. And it started with number 1. I'm just going to share this with you, right? My number 1 thing was I wanted to wake up and pray the rosary. That was the first thing I'm going to do. right out of the gate. I'm going to make sure I do that. And then it was go to the gym, and then it was all this, and then it was to get a car, and then, is to get a job in order to get a car and things. And I just had this whole list down. And then I just started knocking it out. I got up every day, and I would go through that list, just right in order. And I ended up getting this job in Lakeland. And it was at this place called Glamour Shots, if you guys remember that. And so I came in all gung ho, and man, I worked the first 8 days straight, and I was a top salesperson right out of the gate. I was killing it. I mean, I made like $2,000 in my first paycheck, where it gave me enough money to go get a down payment on a car. So I would quit taking the bus. It would take me 2 hours to get to work because of all the bus routes I had to take, rather than the 15 minutes it would have taken if I had a car, right? So with that being said, I started kicking butt right away and get a car. So now things are going. I got a roommate there, made some friends. So now I was able to have my own place with a roommate, and we're having some good times, things of that nature. And I'm working there for like 6 months, whatever it is. And I'm the top salesperson now, not just in that store, but in Florida. And big deal. I mean, I was still only capping out like at 18 grand a year, which is not a lot of damn money, but it's a lot when you went from zero to 18, But the point was this: is that I'm telling you a story is, so I'm in the mall. This is where I was working, and I knew I picked myself up, but I felt like I was missing something. Like there's more. But I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I'm missing. But I just felt like I had this internal drive to do something different and more. And there's more I should be learning. And so I did what I would normally do when I didn't know something. I would just go to the bookstore, and I would like to browse the self-help section. And I actually remember feeling like nervous because I'm like, hey, what's that kid with the long hair doing, going through the self-help section? He must be a loser or whatever. So I have all these thoughts in my head. And I just had to push them away and just go, I don't care what other people think. And I didn't even know what I was looking for. And I've done this several times. It's like I don't know what I'm looking for, but if something speaks out to me, I'm gonna invest in it. I'm gonna give the $25, get the book, whatever. And so I went to this bookstore, and it happened to be right as I was walking in, this big advertisement, Stephen Covey, never heard him before, 7 Habits, Highly Effective People. There's a reason why I'm telling you this whole story. And so I see this book, and the title, does what it's supposed to do. It sparks some emotion, some curiosity. I mean, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Listen, I had a deep desire to be highly successful and effective, right? And so the thing is that when I saw that title, I'm like, well, there's 7 habits. That means they're learnable. So if somebody found out what the 7 habits were of other people who were being successful, and if I learn them and then I implement them, I could be successful too. So I bought the book right away, started reading it. I've read that thing 10 times over. But the point is in the beginning of the story, if you've ever read the book, I'm going to try to do this justice. They talk about a story of this person who had this goal of being like a Fortune 500, billionaire CEO type scenario. And again, I'm going to try to do it justice. So I'll just give you the highlights. And so he had this goal to do it, and he worked all his life to get to the top, and he gets to the top, and he realizes that he set the wrong goal, right? Because through the process, he ended up getting a divorce. He barely knew his daughter. He had an estranged relationship with his daughter. And he realized he had his ladder leaning on the wrong wall. Now, you got to understand, I'm in my early 20s. I just had this situation where I got to meet my biological father, but it didn't work out. And even though at that moment in time, having a family was not high on the priority list or anything, it was going to happen right then and there. Man, did that story hit me. I'm going, I don't want, as bad as I want to be successful, I don't want that to happen to me, to where one day I'm not there for my kids in that scenario, because it was real to me, because I know what it felt like. You guys, are you with me on that or no? Does that make sense? So knowing that, setting your goal, setting the wrong goal is a major reason why we can fail. So this is why you got to really investigate and listen to that voice, and what is it that you really want. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. So I definitely think that that's an issue. This one I take issue with. So a lot of you were saying you set the goal too high, or the bar too high, or it was too challenging. And I really take exception to this because, again, I'm going to get into some personal stuff here, but just bear with me for a little bit, okay? So we talk about too challenging. Listen, when I was growing up, I briefly mentioned a few minutes ago that I was in a rock band in my late teens, early 20s, things of that nature. But even prior to that, when I had a stepfather, when I was living back in Arizona through high school, I mean, I mean, the home situation was so violent. Where I was the oldest, I'm just I'm a skinny 6 foot kid, 14-year-old kid, and I got two younger brothers, and I got this 6'4" biker, that likes to get very physical and violent, in the house, especially with my mom and things of that nature. And so there was plenty of times where I was studying and I was practicing my guitar all the time, and I had these big dreams, and I wanted to be a rock and roll star. And I'll never forget the time he came up and I had to put my guitar down because he was getting physical and violent, and he just hated when somebody stood up to him. And so I put my guitar in the case in case things really got crazy. And sure enough, he went over it and he started smashing it with his foot and just saying, "You'll never amount to anything." And you know, again, everybody has a sad story or a story, right? And the thing is this, is that you have a choice in that moment, right? And I really believe, and again, I'm going to borrow from Tony Robbins here because I heard him say this recently too, so it's kind of his words. But choice is not about your situation; it's about decisions. And the decisions you have in that moment. It would have been real easy to fold up, and it would have been real simple to go. You know what? Listen, we're just basically white trash. That's the way it is. Wasn't born with a silver spoon or anything, and that's just whatever happens in life, it happens. But I'm talking about somebody that person that was in our life at the time, and he would work 6 months out of the year, and then he would know when to get benefits by accidentally getting fired somehow, so he could have 6 months off, and then when the benefits ran out, he would go back to work. I'm like, man, I don't want to live like that. And so in that whole moment, especially when he went to smash the case on my guitar and whatnot, I could have just cowered and said, okay, this is the way life is, or I could get really pissed off because he was telling me I'm never going to amount to anything. And so I think we all have a choice. We could either accept what other people are telling us our fate should be, or we could get really pissed off and use that anger and want to prove people wrong. And that's the direction I chose. So when we talk about too challenging, let's take this a little bit further. I barely graduated high school. Obviously, since the stuff I'm just sharing with you was going down in my high school years, concentrating on books wasn't my strong suit at all. And especially since, now they call it ADD. If they had had that diagnosed back then, I totally would have qualified for that, right? But not only did I barely graduate high school, I never even went to college. And so with that being said, I still, with the ability of tapping into what I wanted to do, Rich. Yep. I see your comment there. No problem. So with that being said, I was still able to get a job, be successful in life in the sense where I took it upon myself that I had goals set. I did not allow people to tell me things were too challenging. I ended up starting my first company in 2002. How many of you guys remember the dot-com bomb? You guys remember that? It was really bad, right? When all these okay, so back in 2002, if you don't remember, I mean, right before when the internet was like new, basically, when it was really getting popular, and then all of a sudden, all these companies are investing in all these types of startups and everything, and everything crashes because nobody was running a company the way they should, and everybody was losing money. We had this dot-com bomb, and everything was bad, and yet I started an internet marketing company in the middle of the dot-com bomb. Barely graduated high school, never went to college, don't know the first thing about starting a company, yet I had this desire and passion. I saw something, and I had a full-time job, and then I worked until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, get 3, 4 hours of sleep, and then get going again. And I did this for like 6 months to get this first company off the ground. And within 5 years of building that company, within 5 years of doing it, somebody came along and offered me $1.2 million cash for that deal. It was a month before my 37th birthday. I was already making really good money at it, but when somebody's going to make me a liquid millionaire, like stroke me a check for that, I absolutely took it. Yeah, and I remember, the person I was just telling you about, during the high school, you know, don't think for a second, don't think for a second that that, that memory didn't pop up as I signed that agreement and got that, and then, a few minutes later, I see the bank wire transfer in the bank account. I take great exception when somebody says, "Well, it's too challenging." Now, let's say you want to earn twice of what you're earning now in your sales job, right? Let's say your base salary plus commission, you want to earn twice as much. Okay, well, sure. If you set the goal to, hey, I want to earn twice as much this by the end of this month, that might not be realistic, but it might be too short term. But if you set the time frame and you work towards it, that's a different story. Does that make sense? You guys with me? All right. So I have something I want to share with you, and we're going to tag on this, and we're going to try to move along. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, right? Because I really want to go ahead and get some of this other stuff that we have here. But I want to go back to the too challenging part. When you have nothing, it's easy to jump off the cliff in the sense of just go for it, right? Just to go ahead and just go all out because it can't get any worse, right? But when you start to have some success, and now you have another dream or desire that you want to do, that can be a little challenging when you have something to risk. And so once I sold the company, I took a little time off. I wanted to start another company. And I was thinking about all the years I had as a straight commission sales rep and all the things that I've learned along the way. And I was like, I think I can give back. And first of all, $1.2 million is nice, but at 36, 37 years old, with two kids, you're not gonna live forever off that. You're just not. Okay, especially in this world, in today's world, right? So with that being said, I knew I was gonna have to do something else. I wanted to do something else. I had some cash and some capital now, and I had a couple ideas what I wanted to do. And I was like, you know what? Nobody's doing sales training online, first of all. And the programs that I saw out there, I just thought they were the same material over and over again. And I'm like, I have something new to share, something I know works. I think I could help other sales reps that struggle like I used to struggle. I think if I show them what I did differently, they could make more money like I did. So I was really thinking about starting. The problem was there were no online sales training companies at the time. You had the Sandlers, you had the Dale Carnegies, you had all that stuff, but that was all franchise stuff, and you'd have to go to their location. And I really didn't like that business model because you could only sell to the people in that area, right? And I'm like, man, what if we just did this live online or even on demand first? I actually started it on demand first, and that was the goal I wanted to, because I really wanted to help and share my knowledge. But the fear of failure was really taking over. And I even started hearing whispers from people I thought were my friends that would have been happy that I sold the first company going, he just got lucky. And yeah, I did get lucky, but I made my own luck, right? I mean, I was the one that was up all night when everybody went to bed, to figure things out and handle stuff and to learn how to grow a company and things of that nature. And yeah, I created my own luck, but now I have some capital and I got some people I thought were my friends. I could hear them talk about, I just got lucky, so I'm getting some self-doubt. And I don't know, I'm starting to doubt myself, which is not my kind of territory. So what ends up happening? I go on a chaperone trip, and I think you'll like this, so hang with me here. I go on a chaperone trip with my daughter, who's in college now, but I think she was in 5th grade at the time, and we go to the Kennedy Space Center. By the way, if you've never been to the Florida Kennedy Space Center to do a tour, I highly recommend it. But we're at the Kennedy Space Center, we're doing the tour, and when the tour's done, the whole time I'm thinking about how do I start this business, this sales training company? How do I do this? What if I fail? What if I invest all the cash that I just got from the sale and I waste it? And now I'm out of a job. I don't have a company. I don't have a college degree. I mean, all this crap was running through my mind. And so as we're leaving the Kennedy Space Center, like all things in Florida attractions, when you leave, you go through a gift shop. And in this gift shop, there was a real astronaut there. He was older, but he was a real astronaut, and he was taking questions from the kids. And the kids are all there. They're asking him questions. I turn the corner, and I see this. Let's get this set up right. I see this hanging on the wall. Now, what do you guys see here? What do you guys see here in this photo? Framed picture, man on the moon. Okay. I didn't see any of that. What I saw, when I turned that corner and I saw that, what I saw was anything is possible. Anything. The dude is standing on the moon. By the way, do you know who that is in the photo? It's not Neil Armstrong. It's actually Buzz Aldrin. Let me see if I can blow it up for you a little bit. Oop, that's going the wrong way. See if I can blow it up for you. It's actually Buzz Aldrin. If you look real close, you'll see his photo, his signature there, right? Anyway, so it's Buzz Aldrin. But so then I thought to myself, well, what if that astronaut that's right there, like 10 feet away, taking questions for the kids, what if that was really Buzz Aldrin? And what if I went to, I said, Buzz, I got this idea for a company. I don't know if it'll work and blah, blah, blah. I mean, how could I ever say something like that? The dude stood on the moon. So it was right then and there that I decided that's where I decided to go ahead. We're going to go ahead and do Sales Buzz, right? I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And by the way, that's where the name comes from. That's how I came up with the word Sales Buzz. Buzz is attributed to Buzz Aldrin. That's why there's a rocket ship in the logo. Anyway, now I'm getting into the Cliff Clavin useless trivia stuff, but I'm sharing this stuff with you because I've always felt that if I could overcome the challenges that I have to reach a certain level of success that I always had a desire to do, I think everybody can. The problem is a lot of times we carry our own boat anchors around. Does that make sense? All right. Let's get to the next thing here. All right. One of the other things is this, and some of you guys touched on this, is we're talking about why do we often fail at achieving our goals. And I think one of the things is that we have no real desire to achieve a goal. And I'm going to share another personal story with you. In the middle of that .com bomb, when I had a full-time job, before I even started the first company I was in, I went to it was that time between Christmas and New Year's, right? And so my boss comes out to us, to the sales rep. She says, okay, guys, I want you to come in one-on-one. I want you to work on your goals for what they're going to be for next year, and come on in. I'll meet with you one-on-one. And then when you're done, you can leave for the year. He's made it. I'll never forget the joke. He'll leave for the year and come back in a few days after first of the year. So everybody goes through. I'm the last person. I go in. I have this list. And I go ahead and I run the list by him. We talk about it. He asks some questions. He goes, okay, sounds good. And he makes the joke, see you next year. And I'm on my way. I'm walking out. Now, I have one child and I have another one on the way. And, the economy's in the pits. And, I'm just thankful, that I have an actual job. And yet I get 10 feet out of his office. And sales managers, I want you to listen to this, because this sales manager changed my life right here. So this is the power you can have. So hey, listen what happened. I get about 10 feet out of his office. I stop dead in my tracks, and I go back into him, and I say, you know what? I don't want to accomplish any of those things on the list that we just went over. And now I'm thinking, oh, God, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to have to go home in this economy. I have to tell my wife that, I lost my job, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of sales managers, they may have done that. I've worked for a lot of them that would have done that. And I was very fortunate to have somebody that goes, well, okay, come back on in. Let's talk. Ironically, he sought first to understand, which is a big part of the Stephen Covey book, right? So I was very fortunate in that area. He sought to understand, and I explained to him what I really wanted to do. I have this idea for a company. I have this idea for a business that I want to do. And he's like, have you ever started a business before? No. I barely graduated high school. I never went to college. He's like, okay, what about the industry have you ever worked in this industry before? I was like, no. I mean, every question he asked was no, no, no. And if you looked at it, I mean, if you were a banker and I was going for a business loan, it'd be like, hell no, right? But then he goes, well, he makes this the final question was this. He goes, well, let me ask you a question. Can you promise me that you'll give me 100% while you're here? See, I was his top sales rep, but it wasn't the money that he was making off me that he was worried about. Ever since I got to that company, when I got there, the sales reps that are already there, they were in that comfort zone. And then so when I got there and started outselling them right away, then they got out of their comfort zone. So he was actually making more money off the sales reps who were trying to catch me than the deals that I was making. But that's neither here nor there. But that's what he was saying. He goes, can you give me 100% while you're here? And I said, yes, I promise I'll give you 100% while I'm here. And he says, good, listen. I started this company at ground zero. He was actually, technically he was my sales manager, but he was also the president of this one division. So I started at the ground floor. I worked my way up. I'll tell you, if you give me 100%, you keep doing what you're supposed to be doing for us, anytime, we'll set up a time once a week. You have questions around the business, come to me. We'll have lunch. We'll walk through them. It was almost a year to the day where I came to him and I said, listen, I have to leave. It's costing me money to be here. The business, my side business is taking off. And, you know, it was okay. And that first company is what led me within 5 years. I mean, that I got that $1.2 million check. That's the power of having knowing what your desire and the goals are that you wanted and getting aligned with them and be willing to say no to other things. It's also the butterfly effect. I mean, you guys have to understand something. If I'm not honest with myself in that one moment after we did the initial review of the goals, if I didn't stop and go back and say, I don't want to do any of those things, we're not here today. You're not listening to me today. Because I'm probably still working for somebody else. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Maybe your goals are you want to start a business one day. Or maybe your goals are you want to earn enough so you can retire early or pay off a house or go on a vacation or lots of vacations, whatever it is. There's no right or wrong. It's what I really do believe that God has given all of us planted a seed in us of what's important to us and what our desires are, and we have to nurture that. I really do believe that. And I think we all have individual uniqueness and talent, and I think that, you know, so many times with the challenges that we face and the struggles that we face, we let it die in the vine. Nothing is going to be easy. It wasn't easy going and turning around and telling my boss I don't want to achieve those things. There was plenty of times and headaches through the first company. Sales buzz was no walk in the park. I mean, my first company took off. Sales buzz at first, you know, and I even had capital, and I thought sales buzz, you know, should have taken off a lot faster. I quickly realized that because I wanted to do everything on demand. I learned quickly, listen, salespeople, you know, on demand sounds convenient, but we'll get to it when we get to it. But when I started doing the sessions live, the same material live, all of a sudden, people were signing up left and right. But the whole point is this, is that there's still going to be struggles. There's never easy street. I see people on LinkedIn all the time, their little videos and all this stuff, and they act like they got it made, like they just won a $500 million lottery. And maybe some of them have, but I think most of them are full of crap. Right? It's always going to be a struggle, but you're going to want to struggle and go for the. If you're going to struggle, you might as well do it for the things that you want, and then get rewarded. There's always going to be ups and downs, peaks and valleys. Now, the good news is when you're in a valley, that means your peak is right around the corner. You just got to keep pushing. Does that make sense? I guess the whole point I'm trying to say is it's never going to be just a high life all the time, you know, 25 hours of the day. Fair enough? But when you are tapped into what you really want to, what your big desires are, when you're tapped into what you really want to achieve, that's key, and you keep pushing. Now, sometimes you're going to be in a situation you didn't realize that you are where you are. You're right where you needed to be. I have to tell you, there was times I would drive to work. Way back in the day when I got my as a straight commission sales rep, when I was selling by phone, this was after the glamour shots thing, right after the retail sales, I went into business-to-business sales, and again, straight commissions stuff. And I was going into work, and I was cold calling. We were selling to IT people, and we didn't even have computers. We had a phone, and we had a piece of paper with names on them and numbers, and we would have to pick up the phone and call. And I got to tell you, there were times where I was like, "Why? You know, this is not where I want to be doing." But I had a bigger vision of earning enough cash to get me to the next level. And then, lo and behold, through that whole process of going through that time period, it sharpened my sales skills to leaps and bounds, to the point where I could start a company in the middle of the dot-com bomb and be able to get that company off the ground. And then once that company was gone, don't forget, ironically, do you guys remember 2008? What happened in the market 2008, 2009, 2010, right? I mean, the whole economy crashed again, but that's when I started Sales Buzz. And the thing is this, if you can start something and get it to work in a down economy, when the economy takes off, you'll do well. But it was because of going through all that cold calling that I was doing early on that sharpened my sales skills to the point where I could survive in those other areas. But it was all about the desire and achievement. I want to make sure you guys hear what I'm saying. I am sharing it. I don't do this lightly. I don't share this workshop lightly. I kind of gave you guys a heads up last week. It's going to be a little bit different. I am sharing my story, opening up some old wounds even, because I feel that I'm being called to let you guys know that whatever you're going through, if you're on a high note right now, great, keep it up. Keep it up. Remember that feeling that you worked hard to get there, because when it goes down, you're going to have to work yourself through that again. If you're in a down period right now, just keep pushing through. It's all about your decisions that you made. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results. You're going to have to change something. Learn from others that have already achieved what it is that you are after. That's probably one of the best things I can say is, again, as a musician early on, I used to hear people tell me all the time, you'll never make it. But every time I had an opportunity to meet a rock star and I told them what my dreams are, they always said, keep going, dude. Keep going, right? So with that being said, again, little useless trivia. Right before I met my wife, right when I met her at the Glamour Shots, right? She was a manager there. I actually tried out for Ozzy Osbourne, and even though I didn't get the job, I still have the letter today that he wrote me, so that he was going to go in a different direction. So even in that scenario, still following your passion. I just so happened at that same time I got a real passion for sales as well, and it was you just had to keep pushing, find your fire, and keep going. All right, let's move on. One of the other things is this before we run out of time, because I still have a lot to get to. No plan of action. Some of you mentioned earlier, and when I said why do we often fail at achieving our goals, and I agree. A lot of times there's no plan of action. Now I will say this. I'll take somebody with a deep desire and no plan than somebody with no desire and the perfect plan. I'll take that all day long. So let's talk about some of these things here. The secret to goal-setting success. First things first, you have to realize there are two types of goals. First of all, and we're going to swing this back to sales, right? And this will be in other areas, but let's talk about sales goals for a second. You have to understand something. There's an outcome goal. Outcome goals are what you're pursuing. They're usually not within your control, but they help guide you to greater success and achievements. That's key, right? All right. With that being said, you have to, Kyle, Ozzy signed it. I'm sure it was Sharon or whoever their secretary that wrote the letter. Kyle's asked me, Ozzy actually reads letters. If he actually wrote it, I probably wouldn't understand it. Okay. No, but yep, I still have it. Anyway, with that being said, two types of goals. An outcome goal is what you're pursuing and are usually not within your control, but they help guide you to greater achievements and success. The other kind of goal is a process goal, and process goals are completely within your control and help increase the probability that you'll reach your outcome goals. Does this make sense so far? Outcome goals, less control. Process goals, more control. Now, I got a question for you. I got a quiz for you. What your monthly, let's say, do you guys do monthly or quarterly or annual quotas? A little bit of both. Okay, some of you, most of you are saying monthly. All right, so that's the most popular. So let's do it this way. Your monthly sales quota, outcome or process? Is your monthly sales quota an outcome or a process? Outcomes, less control. Process, more control. Which is it? If I ran a poll right now, Monica, you got to pick one. If I ran a poll right now, it's running about 50-50. No, it doesn't depend. It's not a little bit of both. You can't be a little bit pregnant. It's one or the other. What would you say it is? Your monthly quota, is it an outcome goal or a process goal? For those of you who said it's a process goal, is that because we're talking about process goals are completely within your control, and ever since you started your day one, since you picked up your phone and you got into the sales field, in the sales profession, your manager said, hey, if it's up to you, if it's going to be, it's up to you, right? You're in complete control of hitting your monthly quota. Is that why you're picking that? For those of you that picked, yeah, that's what I figured. I have news for you. Your monthly sales quota is actually an outcome goal. You have very little control over that number and whether you hit it or not. The difference is you have complete control over the process goals that'll help you achieve that number. That's the difference. You follow me? So if you have say 50K a month is your goal, right? Your quota. Okay, not much you can do to hit that number, but meaning as far as guaranteeing that number is going to get hit. But what you can do is you can have a goal. What's the number one process goal you can do that will help, that you have control over, that will have the greatest impact and give you the greatest chances of achieving that goal? Number of dials, absolutely. You control how many times you pick up the phone, correct? You control if you get into work a few minutes early and build your prospecting list up first, or you control your ability to get to work early and role play with a seasoned veteran to make sure you sound really good on the phone, or to listen to these tapes over again, or these workshops or whatever, right? You control that stuff. But the number one thing is the number of dials you do. You control that. So I want to use that as an example. Do you see how the process goes? If you say, hey, I want to do 50 dials a day, you can control that. Does that make sense? And then the more dials you do and the more you do them well, the better chance it's going to increase that you get to your outcome goal, which is hitting your monthly quota. Make sense? All right, excellent. So how to set and achieve long-term goals. This can go for sales quotas. This can go for personal things, right? But your long-term goal, first of all, if it's your annual quota, right, that's easier. It's at 12 months, right? But then if your annual quota is 12 months, what's your midterm? What would be your 6 months, right? Very good. Okay. So if 12 months is long-term, midterm 6 months, what's your short-term goals then? What time period is that? 1 month? I'll take that. What else could it be? Quarterly. Absolutely. So 1 to 3 months is your short-term. And then your last one is your immediate goals. What does that look like? Long term is 12 months, midterm 6, short term is 1 to 3. What's your immediate goals? Today or this week? Absolutely. Out of all 4 of those, only your immediate goals are going to fall into your process goals. The better you are at your immediate goals and of hitting those things and making sure you get them done and you repeat them day after day after day, it's going to build into making sure you hit your short-term goals, and then that's going to bleed into your midterm goals, and that's going to bleed into your long-term goals and give you a fighting chance to hit that number. Does that make sense? Now, you have to have the passion to want to do this, and just paying bills is not a big enough passion. The fear of losing your job, which is I remember back in the day, that's a big one, but it's not the right kind of passion. Sure, that level is always going to be there, should go without saying. If you're not doing a good job, you need to move on. It's better for you, it's better for the company, it's better for everybody, it's better for your family, right? But we don't want that to be like a driving, motivating factor. You want to tap into why are you working where you're working? What is it about the amount of revenue that you want to generate that's going to help you get to? You want to focus on those things. Sure, it's going to be times where, man, I just got to worry about paying the mortgage next month or paying for my kid's school or putting gas in the car. I get that. I've been there. And you're just going to have to focus on what you need to do next. Put those things out of your mind, and when it's time to pick up the phone, you just focus on those and you get it done. But you also want to have a bigger picture for when you get through this tough time. You will get through this tough time. You have to outwork it. You have to make different decisions. You're going to have to learn from others, and then you're going to have to outwork it. But you'll get through it. But then you also want to have a bigger vision. So 5 key areas to goal achievement. You have to have a specific goal. If you want to earn more, be specific. How much more do you want to earn this year? Technically, a penny is more. Is that going to satisfy you? I don't think so. Write it down. Goals have to be challenging. You know, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. I mean, you know, challenge yourself to step up. I think a lot of us will surprise ourselves on what we really can accomplish. And you know what? Have deadlines set. It's easy for a deadline in sales, right? At the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year. But what about your personal stuff? Have a deadline set that you want to accomplish and track your success as you're going through this. It's important to see what you've been doing to get to the point where you are, and then hold yourself accountable. I asked earlier, you know, about goal setting and things of that nature, but what is the reason you want to have those goals? Maybe it's you want to take your family on a vacation. You want to do a family vacation every year. Okay, I got news for you. Book the vacation now. Book it for February. Tell them you're going to hit your bonus. You're going to get your bonus. We're going to Hawaii. We're going to Paris, wherever you want to go, Colorado, I don't care. Whatever floats your boat that you want to go to. Book the trip now. It's called having burn the ships down mentality. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Book it now, and then watch how you go ahead and every day from here on out to the time that that goal needs to be hit, how you work a little bit smarter, a little bit more sense of urgency, how all the little things that were getting in your way of hitting your numbers don't even matter anymore. Because the last thing you want to do is, when it comes February, whatever you set the vacation date up, after you get your bonus check, you don't want to tell your family, I didn't hit my bonus, we're not going to go. Hold yourself accountable. We're going to wrap up here soon. I have a couple things for you. There's a lot of things when it comes to goal setting and whatnot, but start each day with a plan of action. I mean, getting up and just, you know, getting dressed and brushing your teeth or whatever, and then driving to work and getting to work on time. I mean, that's a plan of action. I mean, I've seen people do that, and then they turn their computer on and they get a cup of coffee and they go to a meeting and they, shuffle some paperwork around, and then they talk to some of their coworkers a little bit about the game last night or whatever's going on in the world. Before you know it, it's 9:30, 9:45, maybe 10, maybe 10:15, maybe 10:30. Haven't even made a sales call yet. It's a plan of action. It's just not a very good one. So first thing I mentioned, people get up and get to work on time. I have news for you. If you get to work on time, you are already 15 minutes late. You do know that, right? If you get to work on time, you are already 15 minutes late. So you want to have a better plan of action. And I'm going to share with you some of the things that I did when I was pushing through, when I had these big dreams and these desires, working as a straight commission sales rep, cold calling off pieces of paper from people who didn't want to hear from me and things of that nature. But I still had this desire and things that I wanted to achieve, and I wanted a better life for myself and for my family that I was starting. And so this is what I'm going to give you 4 simple things that I did. 1, I listened to motivational tapes during the drive to work. Now, my wife always laughs at me when she hears me do this workshop because I mentioned the word motivational tapes. I don't even think they make tapes anymore. Now you just download everything on your iPhone, right? But I actually had these tapes with me. And yeah, sure. So the 2 most popular ones that I had, right? I'm sure now you have podcasts, right, Patrick? Absolutely. But the 2 most popular ones that I had, one was the Stephen Covey book, right? So I not only did I have that in a book, but I also bought it on a cassette tape so I could actually listen to it on the way to work. And then the other one was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends, Influence People. Those were the ones that spoke to me. And so with that being said, sure, you're more than welcome to get those, but I would encourage you to see if something else out there that might, if it speaks to you, then that's what you want to go with as well. But notice I had them on tapes, right? And I would listen to them on the way to work. Now, maybe you work from home. A lot of us are working from home these days. We're working remotely. Okay, we got to eat breakfast, right? At least you should. Well, by all means, go ahead and listen to something for the few minutes you don't have to listen to hours or a half hour or whatever. A lot of times, I got to tell you something, and I've confessed this before. I have the unabridged version of the Dale Carnegie's, the one that they have on How to Win Friends, Influence People. I have never gotten through the entire thing. And here's why. I always seem to start it over from the beginning every time I start to listen to it, and there's always something that is said that sparks a new idea, and I have to turn it off, and my brain is fast forwarding all these different ideas. I'm learning something new all the time. So I'm getting out of it what I need, right? So I listened to them over and over again. I would listen to them on the way to work, whether it's 5 minutes or whatnot. I'm going to tell you another quick story. I hope we have time to put this in here. At that straight commission job where I'm selling to the IT people and we don't even have computers and we're just calling off a phone and these, we call them white sheets, pieces of paper with names and numbers on them. And I had to bring my cassette player in and leave it on the desk because it's Florida. I mean, if I left it out there, it would melt in the heat, right? And one of the seasoned, quote-unquote, vets was there, and I was sitting next to him. He goes, "Hey, man, what's this?" So I told him, he goes, "Man, you don't need that stuff. It's all garbage. It's all snake oil, you know, all that motivational stuff, whatever." You know, I ran into him again about 5, 6 years ago. Man, am I so glad I never took that person's advice. They are still in their same kind of rut, never grew, and you know, I've gone on to build and sell companies in that time span. I'm not bragging. I'm sharing. Listen, there are steps to success, and I think one of the first ones is you have to define success for yourself, and you have to have a commitment and desire to do something and go after it. And you might be in a situation right now where you're in a company that, you know what, you don't really want to be there, but it's where you're supposed to be. There's also going to be times where you're in a company where you don't want to be there and you shouldn't be there. What I can tell you is this. If you're in a position that you don't want to be in, but you need to be there, your time to leave is not there, give it 100%. You owe it to your employer and the people around you and your family and their families. You have to understand something, okay, that salespeople, we are not just responsible for our families. We are responsible for our families and all the other families of the people that work there as well, because we're the revenue generators. I think our job is more important than the CEO, the CFO, the whole 9 yards. Because if we're not producing revenue, the money stops, everybody loses their job, right? So if you're there and you decide to take that seat, then give it 100%. And then when you're when it's time for you, where you know it's time to leave, you let your boss know. Well, don't worry, because when it's right for you, it'll be right for them, and they'll find somebody else that needs that spot, and it'll be a win-win. But you don't want to be there and be a negative Nancy. All right? All right. So one of the things that I did to help, I want to share with you to help set and achieve goals, listen to something that motivates you on the way to work. Get to work 15 or 20 minutes early and role play. And you know what? If you're the top salesperson in your organization, fabulous. Get there early and role play with somebody who's struggling. I'm going to give you a word of caution here, though. Never help somebody who doesn't want it, right? You can't drag them uphill. So with that being said, I mean, you have to understand something. I have 50,000 people that follow my newsletter, right? And every month I get about 80 to 100 people that sign up for our workshops, and you guys are part of that. What happened to the other, to all the other, you know, the thousands that didn't, right? Maybe timing wasn't right, but I'm not going to drag somebody to this. You've decided that you wanted to get better, so you made the choice. So if you're at the top of your game, or when you're at the top of your game, it's time to give back or help out. You know, those who want help, that's the people you work with. All right. We're going to have to wrap things up here. So one of the other things I want to mention is this. If you're not hitting your numbers, let's say you're falling 20% short of your goal, of your monthly quota, and you're only making 40 dials a day. Isn't it safe to say that if you increased your output by 20%, there's a very good chance if you did that consistently day in and day out that you would find that extra 20% of revenue? Right, so if you're only making $40 or $50 a day, just by adding 10 more dials a day could be the difference between, you know, falling short and hitting your number. Now, I will say there's an asterisk there, because if you're doing, I don't think your goal should ever be 100 or more dials a day, unless you're doing an auto dialer, right? That's a game changer. But if you're manually doing the dials, that's a red flag to me, because if you're doing 100 dials a day manually, it means you're not talking to anybody. So that tells me there's a problem with what you're saying. The messages you're leaving, the emails you're sending, or when you get them on the phone, what you're saying, your tone or what you're saying is off. So that's a red flag for me. But if you're doing 40 or 50 dials a day and you're just falling just a little bit short, try improving the output. Remember, skill plus output equals results. All right, last thing. Invest 30 minutes in the day, like in the afternoon, prospecting for your clients or referrals, or getting on LinkedIn, doing a little social selling. I like to do it either early in the morning or sometimes maybe around 3:30 or so. Take a little half-hour break, If you're following the right path, you're going to go ahead. Hold on one second. Wouldn't you know it, I get a frog in my throat. Sorry about that. All right. But a lot of times when I'm making so many dials, I'm going to want to take a break mid-afternoon, just take a little bit of break, build my list up for tomorrow, or go to LinkedIn, join some of the groups I'm part of, answer some questions that I know the answers to, and then I get back on the phones for the last hour of the day. I call it Power Hour. All right. One of the last few things we're going to talk about here is track your success. Keeping track of your daily, weekly, monthly achievements is essential to staying on track. You're going to want to do that because there's going to be times you want to give up. But when you go ahead and you look at some of the, from how far you've come, that might give you that little extra push that you need. And it's really important to revisit your goal sheet. Do it at least once a week. Your overall goal sheet. I'm not just talking about your sales goals. Why are you working at that company? What is it you want to do? Is it a house that you want to get? Is it a house you want to pay off? Is it a car that you want? Is it, like I said, is it a kid's school that you want to pay off? Is it just, you want to have a certain amount of money in the bank to retire? Right? Well, you want to go on a vacation with your family? Whatever it is, have that visually there. Because, like I said, it's never going to always be easy street. There's going to be easy street, and there's going to be time that we got to push through it. And sometimes having those visuals of what you're really going after will make the difference for you. And keep your eye on the prize. I mean, failure to look up every once in a while is just as damaging as never looking down. So you don't want to always stare. If you have this big dream, you don't always want to stare at the top of the mountain because it's going to look too far away. Right, so you want to see where it is, and then you want to put a couple of steps forward, and then you look up just to make you're on track. And if you're not, make your adjustments, which is what I want to get to next. For some reason, sometimes salespeople, or just people in general, if they have a goal, they try to go ahead and have this plan, and then as they start to execute the plan, they realize the plan is not working. And so what they do is they give up because they feel that if they change the plan, they're cheating. No, adjust the plan as needed as you're going through. All right. With that being said, guys, I hope that you really enjoyed today's workshop. We're just about out of time, so if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of us. But I'm going to leave you with this real quick. Most salespeople I speak to, they want to go ahead and at least make $100,000 a year or more, right? And a lot of people these days are having like a base salary of 40 grand. So I'm going to use some basic numbers here, right? So let's say your long-term goal is you want to do $100,000 in earning over 12 months. Let's say you have a base salary of $40,000, and let's say you have 5% gross sale, right, of commission. That means you need to do $1.2 million in sales over 12 months, which is going to break down to $100,000 in sales a month. Are you falling short of that? If you are, where can you get better without having to work longer hours to make up that difference? One of the first things I'm going to ask you to do is this, is if you're falling a little bit short of it, track your dials and your talk time. If you're only doing 30 or 40 dials a day, how can you go ahead and get more production out of that a little bit? How can you amp it up a little bit? Start looking at some of those things, set some goals, make sure that you already have the outcome goals, adjust the other goal setting for your process goals, and get to work on it and see if you can amp it up a little bit. And I'm sure you'll find that extra money. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go take your exam. You should be getting an email right now for it. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Next week's our last session. We're going to go over time management skills, and then you'll take your final exam next week. But I'll let you go take the quiz on this right now. Again, thank you very much for letting me share some of my experiences with you. I hope you liked it. And based on the comments, I see that you guys do, so awesome. If you have questions, you can email us at admin@salesbuzz.com. We'll see you next week. Take care, guys. You got it. All right, bye-bye.